with some of our partners, ECD measure. This is the brief early quality inventory. And the Becky, oh my God, if everyone is seeing the screen the way I'm seeing, it's very terrible. It's only that screen. Thank you so much for validating. Okay, so within Becky, there are 4 main areas they're looking at. As a teacher, we're really supporting them to identify how learners, how we have in play-based learning. Remember, these are the early years. So a lot of practical exercises is quite critical for them. And then leveraging on that as well is learning through conversation. How am I having conversations with learners? How are they expressing themselves so that I know better about what they need and want? And then there's promoting strong relationships. It's at this point that the learners at such a young early age really build that trust and relationship with their teachers, and that actually translates into better learning outcomes we've come to discover. And then finally, of course, safe and stimulating learning environments. Now, that's for pre-primary. For primary, we have VITAL, which is valuing inclusive teaching and learning. Thank you. This tool is a build-up of the World Bank Teach tool and a tool around the inclusive learning environment within the foundation. So the dimensions around the VITAL tool, next slide, if you will, thank you. There are 8 dimensions, but I'll just focus on the areas. So the areas it looks like is creating that supportive learning environment. How am I looking at the emotional climate within the classroom? So the teacher is assessing how these relationships are affecting the learning outcomes, as well as whether they're really communicating with the learners around high expectations and what is the expectation for their learning. So learners are setting their own learning goals. On the other side of it, also they're looking at quality teaching and learning practices. So as a teacher, am I engaging in feedback? Am I engaging in learning to learn? And I know this language is quite familiar with us because it does form part of the competencies that we're looking at as teachers. Now that's the learning environment. So as you're looking at assessing my classroom, you're assessing the learning environment and the behaviors that contribute to that, but then there's also the learner assessments. Now, this is just a screenshot. Next slide, please. Yes. It's just a screenshot of some of the learner assessments. And the assessments are very much scenario and authentic based because we found this translates more in making meaning of what they're learning. So it's the learners now translating what they've learned into the real life scenarios and practice when it comes to that. The good thing with everything we do within the Foundational Schools 2030 is the tools are open source, global good. So if you go to the next slide, you can actually access all the learner assessments, not just from Kenya, from all the 10 countries in their respective languages on the item bank. Whereas we also have the learning environment on our website. And I'll display the QR codes there in a minute. If you could go to the next slide, I'll come back to that. There are some challenges we have encountered. I've just picked 2 of them. One is around that mindset shift. There's a lot of times we are struggling with getting teachers to appreciate that assessments and innovations are going beyond just the data that I'm producing. They're going beyond just what is set for me in terms of coverage. And we're really working with them towards shifting their mindset to appreciate that assessments are not a compliance aspect, but they are for me to learn, for me to iterate what I'm doing in my classroom. But then the other element comes in terms of timing. One of the things we really encourage is reflection for our teacher. There are tools around self-reflection. So then even as much as someone is coming into my classroom to make observations, I'm also able to reflect on what I did well and make changes based on that. And you find that a lot of teachers say that they don't have time to reflect. And if we don't make time to reflect, then how do we learn? So looking ahead, some of the things we are working towards is working with the pre-service. Because if we can get them right at the start, right where they are being prepared, that teacher preparation stage, if we could work with some pre-service institutions to learn around what makes an inclusive learning. For us, it has to go beyond that to enable the teachers themselves to act on the data that comes from that assessment. How am I making meaning of the data so that then it's improving my learning outcomes every day with every learner in every classroom. So it's amazing for us to see a room full of people who share the same beliefs. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Halima. Thank you. So if they are, as we wait, I'm told the minister is at the exhibition. So I think so that we utilize our time appropriately. If there are any questions for Halima. Halima, if you could hang around here. If there's anybody with questions, then we could circulate the mics. Maswai. Mike or anybody with questions, raise your hand, please, so that we can see you. Kama hakuna swali, I think she's a very good teacher. Asante sana. Makofi kwa Halima.
through the data entry apps. Even when the data were entered still, we had to do further data validation, cross-checking some of the results against the expectation. We used psychometric analysis to conduct item quality and learner's ability. And we did this because the way we score our data, they are polytonous, and therefore we thought the generalized partial credit model would be the best. We produced the results and again engage stakeholders, and the stakeholders who are experts in assessment and education, including curriculum development experts. We use the method that we call the bookmark method for determining the CAT scores. So we use that to get the CAT scores, and we agreed on 4 proficiency levels. As shown, at the highest level, we have highly proficient, and this is a learner who is categorized as an exceptionally high level, somebody with a high level of understanding of concepts and the use of relevant skills. At the next level down is what we call proficient, and that is a learner with a high level of understanding. The third level is what we call moderate proficient, someone with a basic understanding. And finally, at the lowest level, we have the lowly proficient. That is a learner who only has a limited understanding of concepts and the use of relevant skills. At the next level and at the reporting level, we picked the first 2, the highest 2 level. So we say a learner is proficient if they are either highly proficient or proficient. These are learners, according to the education experts, who meet the basic expectation of the curriculum. And that is what we want to show the country. So basically, we had 275 secondary schools, and this included 4 special education needs schools. We realized a total of 8,234 learners, 48% of whom were boys, so the girls were the majority. Government schools comprised 71%, and the schools in rural, the schools which are located in the rural areas, constituted 62.4%. We also had learners who are special need. We had 60 learners who are deaf, and then 31 who are blind. So they are included in this assessment. So what does the result tell us? These are the results. We start with the mathematics. Overall, the study found out that 61.6% of the learners are proficient in mathematics. That means they meet the basic of the curriculum, the basic expectation of the curriculum. And when you compare by gender, the results show that boys, that is 72%, had a significantly higher percentage than the girls at only about 52%. So there is a gender gap in mathematics. And of course, that is a pointer. So we need to find out why are girls doing poorer than boys, and the actions need to be taken. The next learning area was biology. In biology, less than half, specifically about 46% of the learners in the country were rated proficient. Again, the boys had a higher rating than the girls, significantly higher rating. And I also want to say here that biology was selected to represent the science subjects. So this gives us a picture that even in the other science subjects like physics and chemistry, the boys have an upper hand. And therefore, this is good information for the policymakers. We also had English which we broke into three. We had the component of writing skills, we had the component of speaking, and then the listening. So what we have there is the writing. So as far as writing is concerned, a very big percentage, that is about 81% of the learners in Uganda were rated proficient, and there was no significant difference between the boys and the girls as far as writing is concerned. What about the listening? Now, the listening was a problem. Only a quarter of the learners in the country were rated proficient in listening skills. And like we're saying, assessment sometimes gives us information. And why? Why do we have this picture? One, we discover that teachers are not teaching the listening in the schools. And one of the reasons is that listening is not assessed at the end of the circle, what we call the national exam. So they're only focusing on things or topics or strands which learners will do at the end of the circle. So they have ignored listening, and many of the learners reveal that this was the first time they are seeing something like listening being assessed. So it is the reason for the poor performance. We also gave them a feedback, qualitative data that we collected from those learners. They also told us the recording, the pronunciation, and the intonation was a bit strange for them because they are interfacing with it for the first time. So they couldn't get it very well because this was the standard pronunciation and intonation. They also complained about the speed of the reader. Some of them recommended that the accent be regionalized. I will use the Kenyan example. For example, if you are taking an assessment to Kikuyu here, you must get somebody from here to read for them. If you are taking it to a Luo area, somebody from Luo, a Luo person should be. That is their recommendation. We have not taken a decision about that. We also looked at the speaking. This was also the first time. We gave them a scenario that they needed to talk about. We gave them time to prepare. They prepared and made a presentation before the grade. These were grade 9. They made a presentation before the grade 8 learners. And somehow this was good because 3/4 of the learners were found proficient in speaking, and there was not much difference between the boys and the girls. And we also discovered that the reason for this fairly good performance is because the teachers give them opportunity to present in other subjects. So they do group presentation. Okay, they present to the other learners in the class. So in so doing, they're actually developing their speaking skills. And this is why they were able to do. But the teachers do not intentionally handle the speaking for them. As part of our second objective, I would like to share with you the results, and we have summarized it in a table for ease of comparison. So generally, the study shows that special education need learners are performing well below the national achievement level, which is not good, except for the learners who are blind, who achieved at a level above the national level in listening sub-skills. Learners who are blind outperform those who are deaf in all the subjects. The same learners had their best performance in speaking and writing. You can see that in biology and mathematics, they are not doing very, very well. And learners who are deaf had their biggest challenge in listening sub-skills. That is where they underperformed most. Girls who are blind had their lowest achievement in listening sub-skills compared to boys who are girls. Similarly, girls who are deaf had their lowest performance in mathematics and biology compared to their counterparts, the boys. Now, since this was a new curriculum, we needed to make a comparison with the old curriculum. The last time we had assessment at secondary level was in 2014, so that results gives us the comparison. So in mathematics, in 2014, the results show that we had 41.5% proficient compared to now 61.6% proficient. In biology, from 20.5 to 45.6, and in English language writing, from 49 to 80.7, which shows a very big leap. That means more learners are getting proficient. But I want to make a disclaimer here that the methods of analysis are not the same. So the results cannot be taken as a, it must be interpreted with a caution. So the best improvement was in English, followed by biology, and then mathematics. Another area that we wanted to look at the new curriculum was via adherence to the new guidelines, the curriculum guidelines. And we selected a few things to look at. In doing so, we had to talk. I remember in the morning, Professor talked about use of qualitative data, which should be triangulated with the quantitative data. And that's what we did. So we held focus group discussion with the senior 2 learners themselves in the 274 schools. And this included the special education needs learners, because we wanted to understand the context in which they are learning. We also wanted to validate the report that we would get from the teachers and the head teachers. At the same time, we had interviews with the head teachers. We had interviews with the teachers of mathematics, biology, and English language of the same class, grade 9. We also talked to the parents of the grade 9 learners. And that information helped us a lot. So one of the guides or indicators we looked at was availability of syllabus books in schools. We want to know whether they have. Interestingly, we found out that 13% of the schools did not have the syllabus books in the school. No hard copy, no soft copy. Their teachers were teaching the old way. And we are saying this was not good. One of the head teachers said we never received copies of the syllabus books. Only a few teachers have soft copies, which they have on their phones, and they are perhaps using that. And the head teacher was not even sure. And that is not good. And we are saying this revelation is not a good one, because it shows that some schools are still stuck to the old curriculum. The curriculum also gives guidance on when they should start teaching and when they should stop, basically between 8 and about 3 p.m. And this was supposed to allow the learners to do research from 3 up to about 5. So what does the finding say? Only about 40% of the schools, in about 40% of the schools, lessons start earlier than they recommended. They start either 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. And then in the majority, they even continue beyond the recommended 3 p.m. And this was a clear indicator that they were not giving time for the learners to do research. They were doing the rote learning. They were preparing notes for the learners, and learners only had to regurgitate the notes. We also looked at the sitting arrangement during lessons. The curriculum guides that they're supposed to sit like in a round table, and this is supposed to enable discussion. This is an indicator of whether teachers are acting as facilitators of learning, or they're actually doing the teaching themselves, beside other things. Here we found that in 91% of the schools, that was happening, and I'm being reminded, time is not on our side. So the seating arrangement was okay. We also looked at whether they give what we call activities of integration, and they give feedback. We found that in 21% of the schools, teachers don't give feedback. I will summarize. We also looked at the integration of genetic skills. In most of the genetic skills, the teachers are doing their best. I think we are lagging behind in communication. Presentations, they are saying they do not have enough ICT infrastructure to be able to give learners a chance to present their work. In terms of reading materials, majority have, and I want to jump to recommendations now because of time. One, we are advising teachers or schools to embrace the use of graph books and books during mathematics lessons. We are doing this because we found that statistics and the coordinates is a problem. I've skipped it in the report, but that is what we found out. So we are saying they should find a way of teaching it better. We also found out that in biology, scientific investigation is a problem. And we are saying they should find a way on how to help learners to handle scientific investigations, not only other things. We are also advising that teachers should begin to teach listening and speaking. They should not only focus on things which come at the end of the circle. They should look at the curriculum as it is designed and as it dictates. We are also advising, this is especially Ministry of Education and Sport, to develop and adapt instructional materials for the special education needs learners and ensure that the schools have the appropriate tools that can help those learners to learn. And finally, we have Directorate of Education Standards, which is in charge of monitoring quality. We are advising that they should intensify the monitoring function so that the curriculum is implemented the way it should be. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So next, based on the timing and the visit of the minister and the PS to the exhibitions, I think it's only fair to the participants that we continue with our conversation. So I call upon Mr. Edwin Kubai and Jonathan Muramba. Mr. Edwin Kubai, are you in the house? Cheza kama wewe. Makofi ya Bwana Edwin.
So riding on already established protocols, my name is Edwin Kubai from Kenya National Examination Council. So with me, I will be presenting with Mr. Jonathan Muramba. This is the work we have been working on machine language. We are looking at placement of learners from junior school to senior school pathway using decision tree machine learning predictive model in the competency-based education in Kenya. So basically, what you're looking at is how can we be able to help these learners make decisions early enough, especially from primary to junior school, then to senior school. So how can we harness AI or machine language to help these learners make predetermined decisions before they join the senior school. So we can look at the next slide, please. So in terms of the objectives, we want to see how to identify factors that influence learner selection of educational pathway choices in senior school. Then number 2 is to explore the role of career guidance in aligning interest with academic performance. Then number 3 is to investigate whether all learners have equal access to diverse educational pathway in senior school. Then look at also to establish whether there exists a relationship between learners' academic performance with their personal interest, and identify best international practices in developing statistical predictive model that links academic performance of learners in junior school with the appropriate pathways at senior school level. So in this class, of course, right now we are talking about the competency-based education, and we know that we have different levels from early years, upper primary, junior school to senior school. So at each level, that's different competencies that we expect these learners to have acquired at that particular level. For example, when you talk about the junior school, that is an exploratory stage where we expect these learners to discover their abilities, to discover their values in terms of knowledge that they are gaining, and also to be innovative, such that when they are moving towards the senior school, at least they have formed opinion which kind of pathway do they want to select and which kind of track are they going to go to in terms of senior school. So we are looking at how best can we harness, if we have AI, how best can we harness to collect more information from these learners from pre-primary up to junior school before they make informed decision when they go to senior school. So I'll go very fast because of time. We can move to almost the models. You can look at the models. Those are pathways. So most of us are aware of those pathways. I may not really dwell much of them because those ones we know about the tracks and even the respective pathways that we have currently. Next slide, please. Next. Until now we reach on the models. Because I don't want to dwell much on literature review. I want us to just look at the outcomes so that we look at the model and see how is this model predicting these learners. If we be able to have this model in place and be able to collect more variables that can be in terms of, apart from academic performance, apart from like the academic performance we are using right now, whether it is KICHISEA or KIPSEA assessments, what other variables can we bring on board to make sure that we conclusively help to predict these learners in terms, so that when these learners sit for KICHISEA, it's not only that final assessment that actually predetermines whether this learner is going to move to a STEM pathway or social science pathway or arts and sports science pathway. What else can we be able to collect from the field? And when you put all these factors in a given model, then from that model, we can now be able to predict early enough so that by the time they reach either grade 9, you already have an idea. If you are a parent, you already have an idea that my child should be heading towards this pathway. Or if you are a teacher, you know these learners are heading towards this pathway, or I need to help these learners in this particular field, for example, to be able to achieve their abilities or their interests in terms of knowledge. For example, if this learner requires remediation in terms of mathematics and is doing well in integrated science, and you want this learner to move to a STEM pathway, that one should come out early enough. For instance, if this learner has interest in a STEM pathway, but if you look at the subject combination, this learner is not either performing well in particular subjects that can help him to select the STEM pathway. Then intervention can be done early enough so that teachers and even the parents, you can be able to help this learner to achieve the intended pathway. So in terms of the models, we want to see if we have, like now as a council, we have assessment data. How can we make use of this data with more data that we can collect from schools to be able to make informed decisions to help in terms of guiding our learners in school and even the parents to make the right decision in terms of guiding them to do the senior school. Of course, as we are trying to do the literature review, there is no accepted like the standard model that you can say connects the interests of learners and the academic performance. But there are several models that different countries have tried to use to be able to relate in terms of academic performance and also the interests of these learners and also some other socioeconomic factors that contribute to the learning environment. So if we have data, we can look at either machine learning model, then we can be able to either select the pathway of machine learning model, or we explain the model, then either come up with the explanation, or from machine learning model, we can come up with the prediction, so that we can be able to generate information that can be able to help the stakeholders to guide the learners in the right pathway. So we can move on up to the weighted scoring model. So there are different types of models that are being used by different countries in terms of determining how learners are learning, or even how they are selecting different pathways. Like we have this one for weighted model, which uses in terms of learners' academic performance. Those ones may be assessment tests and so on. Then the interest of this learner. So you look at the interest, you look at the academic performance of this learner, and then you can now be able to predict which kind of pathway this learner can be able to go to. Then you have the Holland's interest performance fit model that has also some parameters in. We have career pathways in terms of suitability. Then there's a performance part of it. Then there is the interest. Then you also add on what you call the environmental factor. That may be the family, economy of the jobs of the parents. If the parents are working or not working, it's one of the contributing factors on this. So this one can help to know, if you are a parent, where is my child going to go to? If we combine all these variables together to be able to make the right decision in guiding these learners in this competency-based education curriculum. We have the AI, machine learning-based predictive models. They are very important because they now incorporate more variables on board to analyze the learner. So by the time you are making a decision on which direction our learners are supposed to be heading towards in terms of selection of pathway, unless you have collected more information about this learner. So we have it in terms of, like, we have the academic performance, we have the interest, then external factors, maybe like the job market demand. What is it happening? What is the job market demand? So that when you are channeling out these graduates, that the job market demands them, and so on. Then we have issues of parental influence, and so on. Then others may be predictive models, and so on, because these ones we are looking in terms of literature review. So in our research methodology, we used the decision tree classifier for coming up with trying to classify these learners in a different pathway. Of course, in Kenya, we have the 3 pathways that are very, very significant. Then it was descriptive, cross-sectional, but now using the secondary data, because in this case, we are using the machine learning model that we are going to look at in terms of how is it classifying the learners? And if adopted in our situation in the Kenyan context, can it be able to help us be able to classify these learners accordingly, where they're supposed to be, especially if we collect more variables and we analyze these variables in addition to academic performance of these learners in our respective school. So we simulated 1,000 observations using this model and tried to find out how is it placing, and also in terms of the rules that have been established, the 3 paths, we have the STEM, social sciences, and art and sports science. And also, we are looking at the government policy in terms of if we have like 60% according to the Presidential Working Party Directive, 60% STEM, 25% social sciences, then 15% art and sports sciences. Then we incorporate now the decision rules which may be established from time to time, depending on the performance of the learners and also how the learners' interest in terms of those particular pathways. Those ones can be set by either experts from either ministry, even from NEC, from how the learners have performed. Then we incorporate those decisions or the rules inside the model. Then we can now be able to come up with a solution in terms of the respective pathway these learners can be able to be taken to. So in terms of the fund, without taking much time, I want to invite my colleague, Mr. Jonathan Muramba, to give us just a findings out of this. What did you find out? How is the classification? How is it taking place? What is happening in terms of the classification? What is the output? Can it be adopted in the Kenyan context? And if we collect more variables to include on what we have, can it help us to make sure that we have formed opinion before these learners sit for different assessment at different stages? Welcome, Jonathan.
So thank you, my co-presenter, riding on the same protocol. I will continue from where he had left. I think he has mentioned about the issue of variable, what to be collected, but the whole idea is to train a model so that we can predict. the keyword is prediction for early intervention. Because if we can identify weak areas early enough, then we can take early intervention so that these learners then can be well guided, and by the time they are taking their pathways, then there will be some sort of convergency within all the parameters. So maybe a continuation of this. So I think it has already been mentioned that we were guided by the ministry policy of 60, 25, and 15. So maybe you can go to the data, the training data. Yeah. So there are three aspects or stages that we considered when training this model. One is about the aspect of data. Then we have the rules, and then the model itself. So for the data, to get a high-quality model, because the model is as good as the quality of the data that you use, then it has to be cleaned. All the pre-processing should be done before being fed to the model for the training purposes. So what the data that we are using there is already cleaned in terms of duplication, missing values. All those processes have been done. So we are working with a high-quality data so that now we be sure that whatever we are going to predict will be of high quality. Then there is the aspect of rules that my colleague has indicated, that this should come from the expert in that particular domain, so that once they are well established, then it's a matter of training the model. The issue is, can a model or a machine learn? Yes, and that is where there is that aspect of artificial intelligence, because the model is not really programmed. It is learning, then using what it has learned now to predict the features or other parameters on the new data that it has been fed on it. So we have the rules based on the variables input from different stakeholders, and then there, after all the rules have been agreed upon, then now we apply train the model. So what is the model learning? The rules, yeah? So that it can apply in future for a new data and be able to indicate or bring out features that cannot be identified by any human intervention. Yeah, we know that as educators, there's some part of patterns that we can identify, but remember, there are some hidden patterns that may not be identified by humans. So that is where we take advantage of the technology so that this model can learn all those hidden, the latent variables within that data, and then be able to predict. So we have handled the issue of data clean, should be clean, high quality, and then we have the aspect of the rules, and then we have the training. So a bit of handling of the class imbalance. Remember, according to the ministry policy, which guided us in terms of coming up with that data, it is not balanced. 60, 25, and 16 brings some sort of class imbalance. And some algorithms tend to say to favor a class with high features, high examples or students in that case. So there are a number of parameters or interventions that we had to take to ensure that the model does not become a bit biased. Because remember, the decision that will be made out of that model will affect individuals. So we have to be very careful so that we do not mislead those who are going to use the model. So we have the aspect of, maybe back to that aspect. So we had to use cross-validation and also splitting, so that shuffling, a bit of shuffling, so that it does not really learn the patterns in that model, because it would be unfair if it runs the pattern. So just shuffling so that it does not cram. That aspect of cramming, we don't want that model to go that direction. So I think that it was is done so as to ensure that we have validity and reliability within the model. Next. So that is the model classification report. I think it is clearly indicated. We decided to put it in a visual mode so that at least you can see. Next. Yeah, so that is the goodness of fit. Of course, when training the model, you have to train on both the test and the training sets. So you see how it is performing between the test and the test sets. So we did a lot of training. And if you look at the figure, the average, because we used 10 faults, cross-validation, you'll find that it is 9. 9 is fairly a good model. It balances well. It can give something that is reliable. So that was the average performance based on the 10 faults used to train the model. Next. So that is the decision tree. I don't know whether it is visible. Is it visible? No, then let me just mention the parameters that are within that model. The beauty of this model that once you run it, we have the root node, the one at the top. That one on its own tells you the most influential indicator, the most influential variable within the data. So by running, you can get the overall picture that this subject, if it is mathematics, it contributed more compared to all the other subjects. So the root node always takes the most influential variable. So by looking at the tree, then you can already know that this is the most influential moving downwards. So then we say that this model is a bit greedy in nature in the sense that when it is picking the variable at each node, then it picks the best. Best in terms of what it uses. It uses information measure kind of approach called the information gain. That it measures. So the one which, I don't want to go into the details, the technical aspect, but what we are saying, there is a clear criteria that the model use to pick those variables, not just pick randomly. That is a clear indication. That's why if it picks the first one, then that is the most influential based on that given criteria, which is a bit technical and I may not go that direction. So as you move downward, you'll see that those variables at the lower end, the level before the classes are the variable that contribute the least. Yeah? So then you can already know some indicators that there is a problem in this given subjects. Yeah? So next. So now that is the output data. Assuming now we have taken into consideration all the aspects that I've mentioned. So what is now remaining is to deploy that model into an education-specific platform, like the CBA portal for NEC, CHEMIS for Ministry of Education. So you deploy it so that now individual institutions can feed data and then be able to get output at the either school level or any given levels. So at that given point, then we thought predicting then what? You have predicted, then what? So we added another aspect of analysis called prescriptive analysis, which now gives you the other data, the interventions. Yeah? So that when you run that one, it assigns you a pathway. It predicts for you that based on this subject, then you are heading to this particular pathway. So which are your most strong areas, the areas of strength? It will tell you that you are strong in maths, you are strong in this subject. Which are your areas of weakness, the area that may require early intervention? It is there. It's not that it may not be visible, but the second one. And then now there is that advice. What should you do early enough to ensure that you bring all these variables in harmony for you to be able to proceed with the path that you are intending to undertake in future? So what we are saying is, this model is very useful in the sense that the educators in the house can use it to identify hidden patterns to guide the learners early enough based on data. Because now we have the aspect of the human guide, but some aspect may miss in that aspect of guiding the learners. So that is the model which we came up with. It is realistic. We avoided very complex model. The beauty of it is that you can also extract rules from that model. So you can develop rules and also extract the rules from the model so that you can modify where applicable. Now, there is one aspect of monitoring, evaluation of the model. So once deployed, then you can now monitor the model performance real time, so that as the students, all the data is loaded, then you can be able to know whether it is serving the purpose under which it was performed. So with guidance, maybe.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening for us, for our presentation. We really appreciate it. Thank you.
Can we be all upstanding for the minister and the visitors? Karibu waziri na bwana PS, karibuni sana. So can we remain all upstanding for the national anthem? Thank you very much. You can be seated, sir. Student from Alliance High School, thank you very much. You can. Honorable Waziri, this morning we had prayers, and we believe those prayers still stand by your coming. Thank you very much. Now I will hand over to our CEO. From here, it runs the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ogle, and thank you to the students from Alliance High School. you'll agree with me that competency-based education has come of age. Those are students. Let's appreciate them once again. CS, in the interest of time, first we want to thank you for making time out of your very busy schedule to join us in this third annual National Assessment Symposium. We are joined here by delegates from different parts of the world. We have friends from the UK, and they will be speaking to us through Tom Potter from the British Council. We have our friends from the region. We have delegates from Uganda. If you could kindly stand up just and wave to our CS. Those are delegates from Uganda. We have delegates from South Africa. If you could kindly stand up, delegates from South Africa. Maybe they are somewhere, maybe in the exhibitions. Delegates from Zambia. Zambia, there you are. Please, let's appreciate them. Delegates from Eswatini. Yeah, thank you very much. And we have delegates from Ghana. Thank you very much. On behalf of those delegates, our African brothers and sisters, with your indulgence, I'll request Mr. Dan Odongo to make a few remarks. He's the CEO of Uganda National Examinations Board. Kindly, Mr. Odongo.
Council Secretary, the Chairperson of the Council, Kenya National Examinations Council, my brother, the Chief Executive Officer, NEC, Dr. Njengere, distinguished delegates, both foreign and national. Many decades ago, when most of you here were either not yet born or were toddlers, I was in junior school, and our English language teacher used to like having sessions which he called impromptu debate sessions, and he would have topics written on pieces of paper, put in a box, small box, and you were picked at random, and when you dipped your hand and you picked a piece of paper, you would then open it, and you were expected to address your classmates on whatever you found written there. So Dr. Njengere reminded me of that experience this morning. When I met him, he didn't give me a box of topics, but he told me, I will invite you to say a few things. I thought he had forgotten, but he's just done that. But we are happy to be here. And I want to thank NEC and the government of Kenya and other stakeholders who made this symposium possible. As a regional representative for Eastern Africa in the Association for Educational Assessment in Africa, I'm happy to see delegates from other exam boards and countries that are members of this continental association. You've heard them being mentioned. From Uganda, we are Uganda National Examinations Board and Uganda Vocational and Technical Assessment Board. Our presence in this symposium underscores the cardinal principle of the AEAA, the sharing of knowledge and skills in assessment and research among ourselves. A statement that was made a long time ago by a man who happens to be in this assembly, or at least he was around. I had lunch together with him. That is Mr. Paul Wasanga, the former CEO of NEC. When he was the Secretary General of the AEA, he said that within Africa, we have adequate knowledge and skills in the work that we do. And what we need to do is to share what we have. And we don't have to go outside Africa. So what has been happening here, Honorable Council Secretary, since morning is a very ample demonstration of the fact that within Africa, particularly we've seen within Kenya, we have the expertise that the rest of the assessment agencies on the continent can very, very much benefit from. So we want to thank NEC for enabling us to share this experience. I take this opportunity to thank Kenya on the assessments aimed at finding out about quality of our education at the various stages of their learning. We had those very beautiful presentations this morning, Honorable Council Secretary. We've also heard about PISA. In our other countries, we also have arrangements to do assessments at a national scale and generate ideas or data that we have used to make informed decisions by our governments. Honorable Council Secretary, the Association for Educational Assessment in Africa has developed the African Continental Assessment Framework for us as Africa to do large-scale assessments using our own learning contexts. We saw an example in Ethiopia at the last conference of the AEAA, where assessments by one of those large-scale assessment agencies was carried out in a few African countries using items that did not quite fit in the contexts of those countries, but using the information gathered to rank those countries against the rest of the world. So we were saying that as Africa, we need to embrace an assessment framework for our large-scale assessments that are relevant to the context in our different countries and rank ourselves similar that way. Honorable Council Secretary, we had in our last conference last August in Addis Ababa that the learning poverty in Africa is 90%, meaning only 10% of children in grade 3 in Africa can read or write. And this learning poverty percentage was generated from one such a study, which picked a few African countries and a few schools in each of those countries and used the data so gathered to make a generalization about the learning poverty in Africa. But if Kenya does its own large-scale national assessment, Uganda does its own, and if later on we are a continental assessment framework, definitely the data that we shall get will read very, very different. One of the presenters in that conference made this analogy that Africa is not telling its own story. Some other people are telling the story for us. And he made the analogy of if the lion doesn't tell its story, then the hunter will be the one to tell that story. So we are not telling our own story. The hunter in PISA and others will tell our story, which may not necessarily be the correct story. In our country, as has been in Kenya, we have had several commissions that governments have put in place at various points in our political lives to diagnose the ills of the education system and prescribe possible remedies to those limitations. We have also produced graduates who speak fluent English, like I think I do, and recite Shakespearean plays like Othello, but may have no employable skills. These skills of problem solving, critical thinking, communication, collaboration, digital literacy, and so on, which our countries need at this particular point in time. They did not have these skills, these learners, because our curricula did not enable them to do so. Assessment that we conduct also compounded the problem by asking questions such as list the properties of matter, when did Speke discover the source of the River Nile, name 2 conditions necessary for germination, describe how carbon dioxide can be made. All these, Honorable Council Secretary, encouraged content and rote-based pedagogy. Efforts have been made in our member countries of the AEAA to move to the curricular pedagogy and assessment that represent a complete paradigm shift. That is the competency-based curriculum and assessment. The symposium theme starts with the word reimagining. That is, we are rethinking, we are interrogating what is it that we had and where are we, and taking us to new learning and assessment frameworks that encourage acquisition of knowledge, the 21st century skills, and digital and technological skills needed in the workplace. Given the power and influence of assessment on pedagogy, assessment itself, therefore, must follow suit with authentic tasks designed to assess the demonstration of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes, and also generate data and analytics that support evidence-based decision-making. This symposium, with the very rich sub-themes, provides an opportunity for us from Uganda, and I'm sure from our other countries that are here, to learn and exchange experiences as we journey through, in Uganda, our rather infant stage in competency-based assessment. We hope to learn from NEC and how NEC handles issues of large class sizes if they exist in Kenya, the challenges of weak internet footprints and computer availability in schools, laboratory and workshop inadequacy, teacher capacity, among others, all of which, Honorable Council Secretary, have a very big impact on the implementation of the competency-based curriculum and competency-based assessment. Many years ago, when I was puzzling over the differences between a seminar, workshop, symposium, and conference, I found out that that symposium came from Greek, meaning an occasion where the people come together for serious discussions on a topical issue, accompanied by some drinking and dancing. So, Dr. Njengere, the serious discussions have been very evident since morning. As the sun goes down, the other two might also become evident, so that the symposium does not lose its original meaning that the Greeks intended. And by the way, where have the Greeks disappeared to? Honorable Council Secretary, in Uganda, I would have ended by saying, Asante sana kusikia mimi. By that, we would mean, thank you very much for listening to me. Then the audience, like you here, would be expected to clap enthusiastically. My words are finished. Asanteni.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Odongo. On behalf. Okay, sorry. On behalf of our brothers and sisters from the sister and brother countries in Africa, we have very many supporters, partners who have walked with us this journey of conceptualizing competency-based assessment, and there are very many. They're in the crowd. They range from the World Bank, the UNESCO, very many. I can't go through the whole list. Aga Khan Foundation. So in the interest of time, I would therefore only invite two. I'll invite the British Council, who indeed have worked with us right from when we were in KICD, and we were conceptualizing the competency-based curriculum. They worked with us step by step. And to do that will be Tom Potter, who is the country director of the British Council. After that, we will have the representative from UNICEF. Tom, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. A tough act to follow. Please can I just rest on protocol, but say hi again to friends from the CS to the PS to the CEOs that we find here, and our host, very much so. I think I've only got an hour, is that right? I've got a few remarks, I guess, that I prepared, but first I just wanted to start with how I've ended up here. I think last time I was here for the launch of the EARC, and I told you that I was a terrible teacher in South Africa for 6 months. So I went back to the UK, I studied for a bit, I set up a new media company, and it was the year 2000. And I get this ties in because last week I was at the Connected Africa Summit, talking about all the opportunities we have in the digital world and AI. And I was learning about an app that you can have on a smartphone, a very basic smartphone, offline, and it can be fully enabled as a teacher, and it can be all the data you need, all the assessment you need, all the feedback you need, and that is available now, and we're piloting it doing digital skills. In the year 2000, we were worried that computers could not understand the year 2000. Does anyone remember the millennium bug? So look at where we are now. So no wonder we're feeling a little bit confused. The year 2000 was also the year that I got a mobile phone. So in that 25-year period, we're moving at pace, and I think the only thing that's different about this information revolution compared to the others that we've had that's got peaks and troughs, hopes and worries, is the pace. We're moving at pace. And I think that we understand from what we've heard today some very good provocations from Ambassador Tigo and others that Gen Z, and I'm raising Gen Alpha, and Gen Alpha, I don't know if you've ever seen this at home, but we have a TV that's normal, and they go up to the TV and they try and swipe it. There is definitely a generation that is thinking, doing things differently. And with ChatGPT, I think it's the University of Kenya. You use it the most, and you've trained it the most. And it's kind of overtaken the University of YouTube. So the young people are moving forward. How can we catch up with what we're doing here? And how can we open to the idea that we'll never quite catch up with those young people? But also, I want to kind of recognize that AI, and I think we heard from a couple of presenters there, is only as good as the data. We haven't got enough African data, and we are also in danger of being allured by the scale that AI can achieve. It can reach everyone, everywhere today. However, there's a term in kind of AI governance about humans in the loop. We are the humans in the loop. Without us, it's not going to work. And I think that's really important. And one of the things that we are also thinking about is equity. So again, the ambassador talked about structural inequality. Is it going to fix structural inequality? It's not. AI is not necessarily going to fix the number of classrooms you need, the number of teachers you need, and the facilities you need to teach those children. So it's great, but we need to be on top of it. And as the British Council, we really enjoy working with local partners, and we've got a few here today. So CUSA, NFER, who we've heard from, Mizizi and Dignitas, amongst others. And us, alongside you and with others, are thinking about inclusion. Because again, this revolution in IT is endangering in embedding systemic inequality. How do we think about ensuring this has reached as many people as possible? It's a pleasure and a privilege to join you at this third annual Education Assessment Symposium. Many of us were here last year, marking the launch of the EARC. With so many partners in the room, let me begin by recognizing the strong and valued partnership between the British Council and NEC. As you say, we've walked with you a long way. And just as an aside, this is my 4th year in Kenya, so I feel like I've done a degree, and this is my postgrad. And very much I've been learning all the way, and I think that sitting here today and working with you, we're in a much better understanding. We're in a multipolar world. If we don't provide relevant conversations to partnerships, those partnerships will not prosper. So I think we're getting better. The funding crunch and crisis will help us sharpen our minds about what we're all trying to achieve together. I would also like to acknowledge the growing role of the Education Assessment Resource Centre, developed in partnership with NEC and the National Foundation for Educational Research. This is a significant investment in Kenya's assessment and ecosystem and a reflection of shared ambition. But what do we need to make it all work? Well, leadership. Kenya's leadership in reimagining education, particularly through competency-based reforms, has positioned at the forefront of change, not only regionally but globally. We are proud to partner with you in advancing systems that are equitable, innovative and responsive to the need of all learners. Are we future-ready? The theme of this symposium speaks to a fundamental truth. Future-ready education systems require alignment. Alignment between a curriculum that is responsive and competency-driven, pedagogy that is learner-centered and authentic, and assessment that is evidence-based, inclusive, and transformative. Assessment is not an endpoint, it's a driver. It shapes teaching, it signals priorities, and it determines whether learners are prepared not only for examinations, but life, work, innovation, and global citizenship. Large-scale assessments and learning analytics play a critical role in informing curriculum refinement, policy design, learner placement, resource allocation, and national planning. Through the Education Assessment Resource Centre, we are supporting NEC to strengthen assessment literacy, psychometric capacity, and evidence-based decision-making. This is essential not only for improving quality, but also for strengthening accountability and inclusion across the system. AI. It offers powerful opportunities. It can personalize learning pathways, enable adaptive assessments, provide real-time feedback, and improve accessibility of learners with diverse needs. But innovation must be guided by strong principles. We must ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly, protecting data, addressing bias, and ensuring that it expands opportunity rather than reinforcing inequality. Digital transformation is reshaping how assessment systems operate. It enables improvements in security, certification integrity, cybersecurity, and data governance. At the same time, it challenges us to maintain trust. And trust was something that came up earlier and very interesting to us as an organization building trust between the UK and the countries in which we work. Validity, reliability, and fairness must remain at the core of all assessment systems, digital or otherwise. Our collaboration with NEC and the Skills Builder Partnership on the core competency assessment framework reflects this shift. Together, we have worked to define and assess competencies such as communication, teamwork, and critical thinking. This work ensures that competencies are not only defined, but measurable and actionable. We remain committed to continuing this partnership and supporting its implementation across the system. If I may, I would like to turn to an issue that sits at the heart of all these discussions, language. This week, the British Council is launching a new global position paper on language-responsive pedagogy. I think this speaks to our understanding of our role in the world, in a new world, prior to the one. And when you're discussing the lion and the hunter, I guess you didn't see me as the lion. The paper builds on decades of engagement with ministries, educators, and researchers worldwide. It reflects growing evidence, increasing classroom diversity, and the expanding role of English medium. But what are we trying to say? What are we saying differently? Maybe we've been saying it for a while, but we're a bit clearer than we ever were. Language is not a medium of instruction. It is essential to identity, access, and equity in education. In a multilingual context such as Kenya, this has profound implications. Too often, education systems adopt one-size-fits-all approaches to language. Yet evidence consistently shows that learners are more likely to succeed when they are taught in languages they understand, when their home languages are recognized as assets, not barriers. At the same time, English plays a vital global role in expanding opportunity, mobility, and connection. The challenge, therefore, is not choosing between English and other languages, it is adopting an approach where learners develop English alongside their home language rather than at their expense. And in other parts of our work, we spend a lot of time thinking about how to protect cultural heritage here. The language and the cultures here are multiplicities, and that's what's fascinating to the outside world. We can't let the English language itself dampen that reality. As our host has emphasized in previous engagements, assessment systems must reflect the linguistic realities of learners if they are truly fair and inclusive. This requires a system-wide shift. Language responsiveness must be embedded across policy, curriculum, teaching practice, assessment, and teacher development. It also requires investment in teachers, strong multilingual pedagogies, and careful management of transitions between languages of learning. There is no single model that fits all contexts. By adopting evidence-based, contextually grounded approaches, systems can improve learning outcomes, reduce inequalities, and ensure that no learner is left behind. The British Council is committed to working with NEC and partners across Kenya to support this shift through research, teacher development, and alignment of assessment practices with language policy. This is all aimed at being work ready. We know that. That's one of the big issues of the day, to make sure that we're providing students that come out as job creators more than they are job seekers. Dual certification pathways offer important opportunities to bridge education and employment, ensuring learners are prepared for both higher education and the workforce. And I think that industry, education, government connection needs to be developed. We remain committed to supporting teacher development, leadership and assessment, institutional capacity and long-term system strengthening. The EARC, which you will have opportunity to hear about more during this symposium, is well positioned to become a regional hub for professional development, assessment innovation, psychometrics and policy influence. Its long-term success will depend on continued investment, strategic partnerships and institutional resilience. This symposium provides an important platform for international exchange and shared learning. Such collaboration is essential to achieving education reform at scale. I'm closing. As we reimagine a curricula, pedagogy and assessment, we are not merely reforming systems, we are shaping the future of learners, institutions and nations. Through partnerships such as that between the British Council and NEC, through innovation and through shared commitment, we can build inclusive, future-ready education systems that empower every learner to thrive. Thank you, and I wish to have and see and what these deliberations take us. The theme of reimagine is really good. It's saying about we can't continue doing what we've done and expect different results. One of those things. And so I'm really looking forward to hearing about this forward thing. And I'm also looking forward to being, hopefully, with the ministry in London, where we have the minister, again, able to challenge our own minister on the status of English language speaking in Kenya. I'm here getting schooled on the brilliance of your English language every day. So I really appreciate that. And I recognize the humility of being a small part of the solutions that you're looking for here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tom, for those remarks and for your willingness to partner with us on this journey. The last person to make remarks is going to be Polycarp. Oh, yeah, thank you, Polycarp. You're already here.
Yeah, thank you very much, CEO Dr. David Njenkere. Distinguished colleagues, the CS, the PS, the chairperson of NEC, development partners here present, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon. First, let me start by introduction. I'm not the representative of UNICEF Kenya. I am representing UNICEF in this symposium. So Polycarp Otieno is my name, an education specialist in UNICEF Global Education Practice based here in Nairobi. And with that introduction, let me also share a belated congratulations for NEC for having moved to this facility. The reason I'm saying belated is a couple of years back, I used to sit in the Ministry of Education and participated in a lot of MTF conversations that used to allocate resources to NEC. So I'm really proud to stand here on this new facility that currently houses your activities. Whenever we go across the country, whether it is KICD or the KISE or Kenya Literature Bureau, Kenya School for the Blind, and see the investments that sometimes take time to negotiate for, I really feel proud of the decisions that government takes. So congratulations belatedly. It is a pleasure to join you this afternoon for this important symposium, and I would like to commend the NEC for convening this timely dialogue. The theme that has been repeatedly shared with us goes to the heart of the transformation that Kenya is currently undertaking. And one thing that we need to recognize is that Kenya is not starting from zero, because we know that there is foundation that has already been laid. We've heard about the work that has been done under the national assessments. We've heard about the KPSEA, the KJSEA, and also linking assessment to learner pathways and progression. And I did like the predictive model that is being developed in-house to start looking at what potential pathways learners can take so that we start to nurture them early ages. I would like to share with you that globally, more than 300 million kids remain out of school, children aged 5 to 17. It's a serious indictment to our collective education systems. In the region, We have nearly 60 million. Again, this is Eastern and Southern Africa, a big indictment to our systems. And in the country, it's an estimated 2 million who are not benefiting from learning opportunities. Again, while we run education systems, learning is not going the directions that we desire. Globally, 2 in 3 children who are aged 10 are not reading with comprehension. And in the region, again, it is about 9 in 10 children. Once again, a very big indictment to ourselves as collective systems. One of the things that we also see is that shocks continue to disrupt our systems. Last year alone, more than 240 million kids had their education disrupted, whether it was from floods, from heat waves, or any climate-related shocks. In the region, that was about 8 million, and in our own country, it was about upwards of 2 million. And perhaps, more importantly, we still struggle to translate the learning crisis, the triple crisis that I've just mentioned, into system-level decisions, particularly decisions on policy and financing. And this is where we think assessment systems should evolve. Because assessment is no longer just about measuring learning. It is also about making learning visible, actionable, and ultimately investable. Kenya is already generating valuable data through NASIMLA, other assessments, but the real opportunity lies in ensuring that teachers can interpret and act on this data. In the morning, I was conversing with some of former colleagues from NEC and saying that, yes, we do large-scale comparative assessments, which help us to have cross-national dialogue on where our children are. We are also working currently on some middle-tier engagement. But the day we start engaging in a classroom and how results from our learning assessment can influence how me as a teacher, I need to refocus my instruction to attend to the needs of a learning classroom, that is the day that you would say that we have actually met the road. So the real opportunity in our assessments lies in ensuring that teachers can interpret and act on this data, ensuring that assessments, using assessments to refine curriculum implementation, linking assessments to how resources are allocated across countries, schools, and programs. As your partners, as your perpetual friend, our perspective as UNICEF is that there is an additional dimension that we believe is critical. And we say this with all the utmost humility, that we need to connect assessment data to economic and fiscal decision making. Because the learning crisis that I've just highlighted, the triple crisis, whether it's children out of school, whether it's children in school and not learning, or children whose learning is disrupted, it is not only an education issue, it is also increasingly being understood as an economic issue. When children do not learn, productivity down the line is reduced, lifetime learning earnings are declined, and countries face long-term constrained growth. And why should this matter to Kenya, or for that reason, any country that is represented in this symposium? Because strong assessment systems can provide evidence needed to, number one, prioritize foundational learning, which has been over and over again been demonstrated as one of the highest returners to within education continuum. It can also provide evidence to ensure that resources are targeted where they are most needed, talking about equity. And finally, to improve efficiency in education spending. Assessments can help shift education from a social priority to an economic imperative. And this is very important because the conversation that we continue to have with ministries of finance sometimes do not yield so much because we talk about a social spending and not necessarily an investment. And we think if we shift the use of assessment, then the conversation with the Ministry of Finance can change. UNICEF remains committed to supporting Kenya and other countries in this journey, and our focus is very simple. Number one, to strengthen measurement where gaps exist. In the morning, Jenny did mention the gap that has been existing in measuring SDG 4.1.1a related to foundational learning. We did produce a foundational learning module last year with the help of Ministry of Education Kenya, the National Education Examination Council, KNBS, and Zimbabwe as well. That was rolled out in 2025 and is currently being operationalized. We are working on SDG 4.1.1b, which will be rolled out next year. We've also worked on life skills and citizens education framework, which is starting to be implemented in countries in Africa. Last week we were discussing with Tunisia how this is going to be implemented. Another commitment that we are making is improving how data is used. And that is what we're saying needs to start being done by all the examination boards, all the Ministry of Education. We stand ready to continue in this partnership through Data Must Speak initiatives or Data Skills Lab, which can help visualize the results that are coming out from our assessment. And finally, connecting evidence to policy and financing decisions. I cannot overemphasize this. For many years, assessments have helped us understand the problem, and we can describe it. We can describe them in all shape and forms. The next phase for us as we dialogue in this symposium is to ensure that they can help us to act on the problem that is diagnosed. And if there is one message that I would like to pass to our dear policymakers and leadership present in here, is that every assessment result that does not inform decision is a missed opportunity. But every assessment result that drives action is an investment in Kenya's and the other countries' future. And despite the associated assessment costs that have been shared earlier this morning, the alternative is costlier. So I would urge us that we really focus on assessment. And with that, I thank you and wish all of us a successful exchange.
Thank you very much, Polycarp. I think we should give him a session, a complete session, not remarks. He used to be in the government, so he knows where the pain is. At this point, I'm going to invite our chair of council, Professor Nyabundi. He will make his remarks, and after that, he will invite our PS, Professor Bitok, who will then invite our CS.
Oh, the house is full. That means that we are discussing an important issue. The Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Julius Migos Ogamba, the Principal Secretary, Professor Julius Bitok, esteemed guests, colleagues, development partners, and education stakeholders. Good afternoon. On behalf of NEC Council, I warmly welcome you to this third annual Educational Assessment Symposium of 2026. I have adopted the definition of Mr. Odongo, and therefore I don't want to take time here because Odongo gave me the impression that there's something after this. NEC is mandated not only to administer examinations, but also to lead national dialogue, research, and innovation in assessment. Through the Educational Assessment Resource Center, we provide a platform for capacity building, professional discourse, and evidence-based policy engagement. This year's theme, reimagining curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment for inclusive, innovative, and future-ready learning, captures our vision as a council for an education system that is responsive to Kenya's development priorities and global trends. As a council, we affirm our commitment to advancing competency-based assessment, supporting teacher capacity building, improving inclusivity, especially for learners with special needs, and strengthening our partnerships with industry, academia, and development partners. We are confident that this symposium will generate actionable insights to guide Kenya's educational landscape. Thank you very much, and with those few words, I wish to invite my Principal Secretary, Professor Julius Bitok.
Our Cabinet Secretary, Honorable Julius Migozogamba, the Chair of the Council, Professor Nabundi, our CEO, all our guests, partners, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. How are you this afternoon? I want to believe you're fine. Mine is also to join the CEO on behalf of the State Department for Basic Education, I warmly welcome you all to this very important forum to discuss matters curriculum, assessment, and pedagogy. Indeed, this theme is central to competence-based education because looking at it, you can clearly see the three pillars of CBE. That is the curriculum, which is the framework. You can see the delivery of the curriculum, and you can see the assessment of the curriculum. So I want to thank the CEO and the team from NEC for coming up with this brilliant idea so that we can be able to engage on this very important topic. When I was seated there, I was reimagining also. You know, I'm told there is reimagining here. I was also reimagining how we are going to transform this country using competence-based education. And in my reimagination, an idea from Singapore came to my mind. That for Singapore to have transformed to be a great country, they looked for very, very brilliant people to drive the country at the leadership level. And those people were required to have some kind of qualities which they branded helicopter quality. And in the helicopter quality, there are three dimensions. There is imagination, which I was reimagining. That is why it is very important. There is imagination as number one. Number two, there is analysis, power of analysis, how you are able to analyze things. And of course, the last one is sense of reality. You always have to imagine, analyze in the context of reality. So I want to say that this is really, really very quite timely. So allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to say that we are very happy with what NEC is doing. I want to thank and congratulate the leadership of NEC because you have set a standard, not only for Kenya, but for the region. I think you have set a very good standard. And as the CEO from Uganda Examination Board put it, NEC is set very, very high standards, not for the country, but even for the region. And that is really, really very, very, very commendable. As we reflect about what NEC has done, and I want to also say that we are in the middle of a reform process in our entire education system. That is why this wouldn't have come at a better time. And we are very keen on what is happening with competence-based education. Because competence-based education, from where I sit, having traveled far and wide, is the best education system ever our country has ever had. Why do I say so? Because it's about talent, it's about innovation, it's about creativity, it's about those things that really make a nation great. And that is why I'm confident to reaffirm that competence-based education is going to transform our country from third world to first world. Indeed, this competence-based education is what is going to take us to Singapore. I don't know whether you believe me, but I am confident. I've gone to many countries, in Asia, in Europe, in many places. But I want to say what has made those countries great is education. All the infrastructure, everything else we do cannot make a country great. What can make a country great is the investment we put in education. And I'm very confident that with the kind of investment in education, this country, in the next few years or few decades, this country will be first world. Allow me now to request you to join me in inviting our chief guest, who is our Minister, Honorable Julius Migos Ogamba, to address us. Let us stand up so that we can be able and put our hands together as we invite our chief guest for the event to be able to grace this momentous occasion. Karibu Waziri.
Please be seated. Thank you, Professor. So to our PS, Professor Ambassador Julius Bitok, our chairman of NEC, again, Professor Julius Nyabundi, the CEO NEC, David Njengere, our partners here present, the teachers and learners, the delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Good afternoon again. Before I start, I had the MC refer to the students who are here from the Alliance High School as Alliance High School. So in order to avoid a suit, the school is the Alliance High School. And Professor here is reminding me that he went to a school that is relatively unknown, but he's here. And some of you here went to the Alliance High School and other schools, but we are all here together. I think Tom is still here from the British Council. He knows that we've had a long-running battle with the UK because for some reason they don't recognize Kenya as an English-speaking country. That despite the fact that our primary language of instruction is English, they do not recognize it yet as an English-speaking country. And what that does is that, for example, when you want to go to China to become a teacher of English, they say, you know, you really don't come from an English-speaking country, so we can't employ you. So we've been having that challenge for them to recognize us as English speaking, because we are losing opportunities. And yes, God willing, we'll be there again from the 17th, and we'll be presenting the same petition that will be recognized. Having said that, I know it is not really a big problem. Let me wish all our partners from Europe Happy New Year. And normally in Africa, we do Happy New Year until July, because we believe we believe that the year does not start or end until after the middle of the year. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to join you here today to preside over the official opening of this third annual Education Assessment Symposium hosted by the Kenya National Examination Council. May I begin by thanking the Council for organizing this forum and all of you for coming here to participate and contribute. Ladies and gentlemen, this year's symposium is held under the theme Reimagining Curriculum, Pedagogy, and Assessment for Inclusive, Innovative, and Future-Ready Learning. This theme could not be more timely or more aligned with the aspirations of our education sector, especially in Kenya. Kenya's education system is currently undergoing profound transformation through the implementation of the competency-based education system. This shift is far more than curriculum reform. It is a national commitment to preparing our children to thrive in a world defined by rapid technological, social, and economic change. Our assessment reforms in school and teacher education are critical pillars of this transition. The reforms place the learner at the heart of the community and provide a system that recognizes not just acquisition of knowledge, but critical thinking, problem solving, creativity, and values. I think one of the speakers here put it aptly that we've been producing graduates who are very good in describing the problems that we face. But we have very few people on the other end of the pendulum who can actually offer solutions to those problems that we are facing. Competency-based education is calculated to increase the number of the people on the side of problem solving, because we know what our problems are. The problems have been defined, they have been described to us, and they get sort of many descriptions, including words that are used like the crisis in education. I think you here today might want to look at the definition of the word crisis, because it is used quite a lot in this sector. For instance, using the numbers and statistics, the research that you undertake, we have over 73,000 schools in this country. But when about 100 of them go on strike in a term or a year, it is described as a crisis. Mathematically and statistically, I would like to understand how 100 out of 73,000 becomes a crisis, unless that word is put in the reports for purposes other than passing the correct fact of what is happening. I think for those from Kenya, you understand what I'm trying to say. This symposium provides a platform for structured reflection and strategic conversation on how we can better align curriculum, pedagogy, and assessment. As a ministry, we are particularly encouraged by the symposium's focus areas on data-driven assessment for evidence-based policy making, and artificial intelligence, and inclusive digital assessment systems, authentic, real-world, and performance-based assessment. The other focus areas are industry-aligned assessment and dual certification and assessment hubs, and exhibitions as innovation platforms. As a ministry, we are working to support innovations promoting AI-enabled, ethical, and secure assessment systems, including the inclusion of learners with special needs. This is aligned with our national agenda for digital transformation in education. Let me therefore call upon all the stakeholders here, from the universities, the teachers and development partners, to industry, technology actors, and assessment bodies, to use this space to contribute to policy-oriented contributions that will shape Kenya's future-ready education system. Integrating technology in our education and assessment system will not just modernize the way we teach and assess. It will make our education system even more effective and efficient, given the growing numbers across the sector. Technology will also help us enhance credibility of our education and assessment system and inspire the confidence of all our stakeholders. Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to roll out the competency-based education, we are also positioning our system for the next phase of assessments. For example, to ensure readiness and effective assessments in our senior schools, we have established 235 senior school hubs in all our 47 counties. These are purposely sampled existing schools, 5 from each county, representative of public, private, urban, and special needs schools. The purpose of these hubs is to provide for a closer interaction between NEC and the senior school learning communities across the country. The hubs will provide support to schools within their counties in the implementation of the competency-based assessment. In addition, through NEC's Educational Assessment Resource Center, we have established an online self-paced training portal for senior school teachers. The aim is to enable teachers to acquire the requisite skills for competency-based assessment. Currently, access to the portal is free. Senior school teachers are therefore encouraged to take advantage of the opportunity and to prepare themselves for the new assessment system. This is because in some instances, when you talk to teachers, they make statements like, we don't know how this assessment is being done or it should be done. So you're encouraged to access these materials because they are available to you for free so that you are able to bring yourselves up to date on the competency-based education system. The competency-based education system started quite early. We've just transitioned our grade 9s to grade 10, and we are not going back. What we are doing is only working towards improving it and navigating that space so that where we get a challenge, we are able to solve it. We've also had discussions with the universities to be ready for the 2029 intake so that we do not reach 2029 and we find that they are not prepared or they are not ready since we are starting, and I can see some professors are here. We've had these discussions that you need to start early, you need to align early, you need to deal with whatever challenges early, you need to pilot early, so that by that time, the transition then becomes seamless. We are seeing a lot of misinformation in the media about what we are doing or where we are, and that we've done this competency-based education system in an haphazard manner, which is not true, because TSC has trained and retooled over 220,000 teachers to ensure that they are brought up to speed on how to handle these students or learners in the competency-based curriculum. We've employed over 100,000 teachers to cover that gap that was established. Out of the 400,000 teachers that are in the country who have been employed since 1963, 100,000 have been employed in the last 3 years, meaning we've done like 30% in the last 2 years during this administration, as opposed to people indicating or talking outside there like this government has done nothing. That's not true. We did 23,000 classrooms to ensure that grade 8 were able to transition to grade 9. We are doing 1,600 laboratories in schools that have been assessed in various areas, including our rural areas, where labs were not existing before, so that our learners can have access to the materials and to the infrastructure and equipment that they require. So we are working towards ensuring that the competency-based education works so that we can move, as my peer says, this country to first world country, otherwise referred to as Singapore. Some people do not understand that we are only using Singapore as an example of what happened from a country that was third world and moving to first world status. So they are telling people that they want to live in Kenya, they don't want to go to Singapore. That's not what we mean. We mean it means we want to move to first world, not that we want to leave Kenya and go to Singapore. You see, these people need competency-based education. You agree with me that they need competency-based education. So there is a lot that is happening in this space. There's a lot that is happening in the higher education sector. We've improved the MTI, where now the students are being supported according to their need. Hitherto, people who are able to support their own children wanted the government to support them, but now with the MTI improved, we are able to determine that you actually have the capacity to educate your children. For example, if you are registered as a farmer, and we've registered 6 million of them, and you pick 100 bags of fertilizer from the government subsidy, we know you have a big farm. So we cannot describe you as a peasant farmer. It means you can be able to pay, it means you can be able to pay 7,000 shillings for a student in the university. So when you are given that bill, you cannot appeal and say, look, I can't afford. So we are improving this space so that we can be able to ensure that as many students who need support actually get that support. We reduce the university fees, and the professors are here. We had a big challenge with them. We reduced it by between 15% and 40%, meaning the cheapest course now in the universities is 7,500, no, 5,800, right? 5,800 per term, and the most expensive is 75,000 per term. What was happening before? They used a student-teacher ratio of the international student teacher or lecturer ratio of 1 to 45, correct? But I challenged them, I said in the Nairobi University, in the BA hall, Taifa Hall, where I have been, the 800 students, in fact, the lecturer needs a microphone to teach. So why are you using a rate that is not true in the country? So when that was reduced, the figures came down. And what did that do? Because the figures came down, the number of students who are paying went up. You are now at, I think, 85 payment levels, 85% payment levels, meaning the universities now have much more money. So the conversations that we have to have, as my brother from UNICEF was saying, let us have homemade solutions. And let us not allow definitions that are done elsewhere to be imposed for us, and we use that as the reason why, for example, we would say that our literacy rates are low, or that this number of students are not in school and therefore we have a crisis, or that there is this gap of students not being able to read or comprehend. But what are they being asked to read and comprehend? The many rivers in Canada? You know, there are anyway. So we just have to agree that we are doing something. We realized our system was not working. We've moved to competency-based, which is, we think, is our solution to the problems that we face. We just need to improve it, and each one of us, and you, the education partners and stakeholders who are here, have to work towards ensuring that that works. Having said that, and before I conclude, ladies and gentlemen, let me take this opportunity to address a lingering concern There are heads of institutions across the country who are reported to be charging extra levies and additional fees that is not sanctioned. Extra levies and additional fees constitute an unlawful barrier to access to education. Basic education in Kenya is free and compulsory. Boarding fees may only be levied in line with the circulars issued by the Ministry of Education. Our field officers across the country have been directed to ensure compliance with these circulars. Where it is found that heads of institutions have not complied, those field officers have been instructed to give the necessary recommendations for the relevant action to be taken in accordance to the law. Let us all work together to promote access and equity in our education system. What we are simply saying, ladies and gentlemen, is you can't increase budgetary expenses in school that are not core to education, raising the fees and levies, and then saying the government can't offer free and compulsory education in basic education. So we will only allow the fees that has been sanctioned by the Ministry of Education. There are instances where you want to put in the budget 26 million Kenya shillings for a trip to Dubai. And then you ensure that the parents have to support that. I don't know what you are going to study in Dubai, which, for example, you can't study here using. It's a very annoying. It's a very annoying thing. And then, when now you raise that fees, you start sending students home that they've not paid for a trip to Dubai. So it doesn't make sense. We're only saying we have to be responsible citizens and heads of institutions. Let us engage and ensure that our children are in school. We are not introducing budgetary items that are irrelevant, that you then use to say this student cannot be in school because they have not paid their school fees. It is unfair to those students. It's unfair to the parents because it increases the burden to the parents without any particular reason. So they've been directed to check who and where has this been done so that action can be taken. In this country also, in that sector, I have had many principals and many heads of institutions and other people saying, we'll say that, but we'll not do it. We are going to do it because there are ways and means, because it's provided for in the law. It's not fair to the students, it's not fair to the parents. So we need to work together, as I've said, to promote access and equity in our education system. And we need the support of all of us. We need the support of all of us to be able to support our learners in our institutions. With these remarks, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to declare the third Annual Educational Assessment Symposium officially opened. Thank you. God bless you. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, CS, for officially opening this symposium. We do have exhibitions that are taking place outside. So as we leave with the CS, we are going to see the exhibitions with the PS and the other persons. The rest of us can remain here so that we can conclude on the sessions of the day. So Ogle, you could take over. Thank you.